We live in a world that is saturated with data. There are statistics and numbers galore. But one of the ways to make the use of numerical information most appealing to an audience is to find ways to visualize it. In this screencast video, I'm going to be showing you how to use the charts and graphing functionality in PowerPoint to provide visualized numbers that will be more memorable and impactful on your audience. Let's turn our attention to the PowerPoint interface. As you can see, I have the Visualizing Information PowerPoint exercise file open in PowerPoint 2013. In the Notes pane down here, you can see the 5 slides that need to be created in fulfillment of this assignment. In this video, I'm going to be walking you through the process of creating 2 of them. You will be responsible for completing the remainder on your own. So let's look at what it's asking us to do. It's asking us to create a series of assertion evidence slides that visualize the following information. First one, 73% of us use the clocks on our phone. I'm just going to grab that piece of information, copy it, and we're going to add a new slide. This will be a title and content slide, and I'm going to paste that into my notes. Since I have a citation, this information comes from a source, I'm going to put that citation right in the citations window. Now, this is a custom slide master. I modified it just a little bit to create assertion evidence headlines, and I also put this extra layout holder in the bottom for citations. So if you don't have those, in a presentation that you're developing for this class or something else, I strongly recommend that you put those citation placeholders in the bottom. It'll just remind you that if you have information on the slide that should be cited, that's a place where you can cite it. And it will ensure consistent placement and font size throughout your presentation. So this information that we're about to present comes from Nokia in 2006. First, we need to create an assertion. What is it that we are trying to prove with our visualized information? 73% of us use the clocks on our phone. So we might create an assertion, something like, the vast majority of cell phone users make use of the phone's clock. That's pretty simple. We could play with that. There are probably 90 different ways we could state that assertion, but for the purposes of this assignment, I think that's fine. Now, what we want to do is we want to use the charts and graphs features built in PowerPoint in order to visualize this information for our audience. So right here, we can click on Insert Chart since we already have a placeholder here. If we didn't have a placeholder, maybe you've already used the placeholder for an image or other text, you can always go to Insert and you can insert a chart that way. We'll click on Chart, and now we have a number of options. Since here we're doing a percentage out of 100%, it makes the most sense to use a pie chart. So I'm going to click on Pie. Now, one note about using pie charts. There are a number of different options inside PowerPoint. You can do a standard pie chart, looks something like this. You can do a 3D pie chart. Never, ever, ever do a 3D pie chart. Studies have shown that 3-dimensional pie charts cause people to misrepresent the relative amounts between the segments of the pie. So because the pie in the front has this extra thickness here, even though you know it's 3D, it will appear and you will estimate relatively that the blue is much, much larger than those segments of the pie that you cannot see the front edge of. So don't ever use a 3-dimensional pie chart. It's a feature that probably should be removed from PowerPoint. Right here we have a pie of a pie, which allows you to show 100%. So maybe the pie on the left is your budget, and the blue segment is operating expenses, and you want to break that operating expenses into a second pie and explain all of the pieces of operating expenses more clearly. that's when you would use a pi of a pi. You can do the same thing with a bar of pi, where you have a bar graph that shows the relative distribution of something within a piece of the pie. And then you have a donut, which is essentially a pie chart that has the center cut out. We're just going to use a standard pie graph. So go ahead and click on pie and OK. Now what PowerPoint is going to do is it's going to open up a smaller window with the chart in Microsoft PowerPoint. This is actually an Excel window. And we have just basic dummy text that has created a chart for us. So what you can see in the Excel window here is we have labels for what it is that each pie segment represents, and we have the label sales. So we're going to obviously replace this data with the information from our citation here, about 73% of us using the clocks on our phone. So what are our labels going to be? Well, obviously we have 73% who use the clocks, and we have the remaining, what would that be, 27% who don't. So we'll do 73% and 27%, and we will erase the rest of this. Now what you'll notice is you still have this blue line. It's particularly important that you take this blue line and drag it from the edge so that it only surrounds the data that you actually want to be part of the chart. If you don't, you can see that it's expecting there to be data in those cells, and so it's going to prepare legend colors for that data even though you don't have anything in there. With bar graphs, if you have your data area set too large, you'll have bar graphs that are spread out because it's expecting additional categories to be in the chart. So make sure that you drag that blue area so that it only surrounds the data that you want to be displayed. This isn't sales data, so I'm going to remove that and go with the default label of column 1. You'll see why in a minute. So we have our data in here. 73%, 27% do not use their cell phones, 73% do. So now that we have our data set, we can just click on the X and go back to PowerPoint. So now we're looking at our chart. And at this point, we probably want to customize this chart so that it makes it clearer for the audience what exactly they are looking at. So the first thing that I like to do is I like to get rid of legends. That's a basic principle. Whenever you can get rid of legends, do it. And the alternative is to place labels right on the chart instead. To do that, we're going to right-click. We're going to choose Add Data Labels. Boom. Now we can see that we have the data labels right on our wedges of the pie. The problem is the contrast is wrong and the size is far too small. But let's first adjust the color of our pie. I'm going to go to Chart Tools, Format, Design, and we're going to look at all of the different options that we have. I think we're going to stick with just the plain pie on a background, but maybe I want to change the colors. We'll do a monochromatic pie in blue. That'll look nice in this presentation. So we'll get different shades of blue for each wedge of pie. Now what we'll do is we'll click once to select both of the data points. We'll go to the Home tab and we're going to format the font. So we're going to make it white text. We're going to bump up the size quite a bit so it's easily readable, and we'll even add a text shadow to make it pop just a little bit more. Now we have a nice looking, we can maybe even make it bold, make it a little bit thicker. We have a nice looking chart that shows the information that we want it to visualize to support this assertion. Now there's one more thing that we can do. We can get rid of this. Our assertion will tell us what we're looking at essentially. We still need to add one piece, and that is explaining what these numbers represent. So if we right click, we can do Format Data Labels, and in here we're going to add the category name, use and don't use. Now this gives us very easy way to label what each of the percentages represents. You should play around with the label options. You can do lots of things. For example, if our numbers weren't already percentages but were real numbers, we could convert them to percentages right here and display that in addition to the hard numbers or without the hard numbers. So play around with these options. We can also look at the label position. We can move it outside if we wanted to. We can put it on the inside end. We can center it. I think I like it centered like that. That looks pretty good. Inside end, outside end. Let's just stick it on the center. I like the look of that. And we'll go ahead and close the Format Data Labels. We've got a pretty good looking visualized data slide here where we have an assertion clearly supported by some visual evidence with a source citation. So the first three here are all pieces of information that would probably be well represented by the use of a pie chart. One thing you can do, once you have your chart formatted exactly the way that you want it, if we copy and paste that, we can just edit the data to create a perfect replication with new data. So let's look at our second one. 91% of us keep our cell phones within arm's reach. So we'll right click and we'll do Edit Data. That'll pop up our Excel window again. So we have 91% and 8%, 9% within reach and not. Okay, we'll close that. Now for this one, we probably want to move that data label so that it's not spread across our pie chart because we have a segment of pie that is too small to accommodate that particular label. So what we'll do is we'll right click, we'll format data label, and maybe we'll put it on the outside end. Best fit, center. It's not looking good with any of the defaults. So we're going to take this, close it, and we'll just manually move this label and put it a little bit outside. Maybe we'll shrink this pie down a little bit. Place the label outside, which means we're going to need to change the text formatting. Make it black. There we go. Black text. That will work. And maybe we will even insert a shape so that we have a nice little line pointing to it. We'll make that black. Perfect. Not and within reach. Perfect. Now we just need to adjust our assertion. I'll let you finish that particular slide by changing the citation and the assertion. We're going to do another slide, and this time we're going to do one with a bar graph. So let's talk about the replacement cycle for PCs versus cell phones. So I'm just going to take this citation and paste it in here so I can see. I'm going to put in my citation first. Semiconductor Industry Association. 2007 is the source of this. And we'll have to create an assertion. So replacement cycle for PCs versus a cell phone. So people replace their cell phones more than twice as often as personal computers. Perfect. Great assertion. And now we can support it with a chart. So this time we're going to use a column. You could also use a bar. Really the only difference between a column or a bar is the orientation. Bar charts are horizontal, column charts are vertical. They do essentially the same thing. You can look through the different options here. For our purposes today, we're just going to use a typical clustered column. So we'll hit OK. And you can see we have a lot of data in here that obviously we aren't going to be using for this particular chart. So let's go ahead and set our data area. We really only need 2 points. So you can see Series 1 and Series 2. Nope, that's really not what we want. We actually want Category 1 and Category 2, just like that. So we can go ahead and select the rest of this data and delete it. And Category 1 is going to be cell phones. Category 2 will be personal computers. And our time is 18 months. And for PCs, 42 months. There we go. Now we have an issue here where our data, our visualization, is not really clearly supporting our assertion. It's true that people replace their cell phones more than twice as often as personal computers. But with our graph, personal computers is bigger because it's the longer time in between. So this is a great example of where we probably want to adjust our assertion so that our visual evidence more clearly supports it. So we might change our assertion and make it something like the replacement cycle for for cell phones is less than half the replacement cycle for personal computers. Now we're focusing in on the fact that cell phones are replaced more frequently, so we should expect to see a smaller number on our chart. I'm going to go ahead and delete these extra columns. We'll set our data area much smaller here. There we go. Now we have it set appropriately. We'll close this. And now we'll look at what we can do to make this chart even more useful. The first thing that I like to do with bar charts is get rid of all of the extra lines and things that PowerPoint likes to put in there. So you can just select it and press the delete key to get rid of it. We can also get rid of our axis because, like we did with the pie chart, we're going to actually right-click and add data labels. Now we can see what we're looking at here. I'm going to right-click, format. Let's work with our font first. And for consistency, let's stick with the same size font. That's a size 40. So we're going to bump this up. Size 40 on both sides. We'll also add the shadow text, make it bold. There we go. Now we're missing the months. So let's just go ahead and type in the extra text right into our label. 18 months and 42 months. Perfect. Can move that up so that it is either in or out. And in fact, let's just move it so that it's in the inside of our chart. We have enough space for that. So I'm going to select it. We're going to make it white now. Select, make that white. So there we have a nice graph. If we wanted to, we could go to Chart Tools. It's already blue. So our blue monochromatic, let's pop down here. And that'll give us the same consistent blue between our two different charts. We'll probably want to raise the size of our labels down here so that they can be read easily. So we'll do bold. We probably won't put the shadow. It's a little too small for that. Cell phones versus personal computers. We can get rid of the months and the label. Now we have a very simple bar graph that visually represents the information here. There are 2 more charts that you should create before you submit this assignment. So make sure you can create a bar or line graph to represent this information about wallets being reported lost in 26 hours, cell phones being reported lost in 68 minutes. And we've got another one, 60% of us go to bed with our cell phones. You should have all the tools you need now to visualize data easily in PowerPoint. Go ahead and play with the options. You can see all of the different things that you can do with charts and graphs. PowerPoint has really powerful charting and graphing features. So anytime you need to create your own visualization to support an assertion, you can often do it with numeric data very easily in PowerPoint.